And Rebecca, can we also make sure that nobody else switches on their video except for ma'am and Anne?
I'll do that, yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
We're already live?
Yep. Right.
Guys, we are live now. And hey, everybody, we are very sorry for the delay, but we request everyone other than the speakers.
Okay, I think we'll just get started. Ma'am, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anne Georgie, National Officer of Marketing and Sponsorship for AMSA India, and I will be your host for today's keynote. I welcome you all back to AMSA India series, Demystifying Residency, The Path Ahead. Today, we will answer all of your questions about the PLAB in detail. Before we start, I would like to share some general pointers with all of you. Please keep your microphones on mute and switch your videos off. Now, I want to introduce our esteemed guest, Dr. Susmita Reddy. She is a graduate of Topiwala National Medical College in Mumbai, and she has worked in hospitals in the UK. Having successfully navigated through the PLAB herself, she is the perfect person to answer all your doubts about the PLAB. Ma'am, we are so honored to have you here today. On behalf of our viewers, thank you, Dr. Susmita, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Thank you so much, and thanks for organizing this. It feels wonderful to connect to all of you guys.
So thank you, and thank you to everyone who has sent in their queries to us. Our team has meticulously compiled them, and hopefully all of your doubts will be cleared today. If we have time, we'll open the floor for questions at the end of the session. Okay, so let's get started. Our first question is, can you give us an overview about the process of applying for a residency in the UK?
Well, UK is not, so the pathway in UK is not like in US or in India. It's not actually a residency. You start working and then climb up the ladder to become a consultant. So basically, unlike a one-year internship, before getting into any training program, UK requires you to have at least 2 years of work experience. And our internship is considered as a work experience. So that's one main thing. You basically need one more additional year before you can actually train. Residency in UK is called a training program and not actually residency. So the prerequisites are that you at least have 2 years of experience. That's the main prerequisites. And then obviously you have your PLABs and your English exams to clear, which I'll be talking about shortly.
Okay, I think that was a really good overview of the whole process. I actually didn't know that this was the situation in the UK myself, so that's very good to know. So then, the next question is, how do you increase your chances to get into a residency of your choice?
Well, to be honest, given the current scenario in UK, it is very, very easy to get into a residency of your choice. That could be anything. Any medical specialty or any surgical specialty, including orthopedics. I have known international medical graduates, in fact, people from India who have gone to the UK and are pursuing orthopedic residency. However, that said, the situation can always change and you need to be prepared for whatever the situation is. So you need to be prepared for whatever the situation is. So I think the first and the foremost thing is read through your standard textbooks while you are in your med school. Never, ever read those notes or the tiny books that you go for. Have a good base, have a good knowledge, and that's going to always help you. Second is start doing something additional. Have additional pointers on your CV. If possible, do research. I know that given the current scenario in India, and in fact, even previously, research was never a huge thing. But what you guys can do is at least do a case report. Just approach one of your professors, and case report needn't be anything in medicine, or it could be any random specialty. In fact, what I suggest is pick up one of the basic sciences, do a case report in pathology or microbiome, so that even if you want to change your specialties later on, you don't have a problem with it. For example, I did a case report in my UG in pathology. My initial plan was I wanted to get into pediatrics, but now I'm in medicine. So, but because my report wasn't something totally different, but at the same time in basic sciences, it helped me it helped me with my CV. If my case report was in peds and I was applying for adult medicine, I would have definitely been questioned. So you do need to think about what you're picking up and pick up that topic and subject intelligently. Apart from research, yes, get involved in extracurriculars, join NGOs, do as much as public health activities that you can do, journal clubs, whatever extra things that you can put on your CV. It could be a hobby that you pick up a hobby, playing a piano, any dance. You just need something to talk to during the interview, and that definitely helps. Now, UK has a scoring system when you apply for residency or training, and that scoring system is different for every specialty. But in general, there are points for research, there are points for audit. Now, audit is essentially, I don't think you could even do an audit in India because we do not have that concept in India. But audit is essentially you take a particular guideline, see whether the hospital is following that guideline or not, and then try and implement the change. And that's very easy, something that could be done in 1 or 2 months. So that could even be done when you're doing your first job in UK. Then you get points for teaching. That is something that I strongly advocate. If you go to any of the college websites in UK, if you go to RACP website and type teaching feedback forms, there will be forms available. Print those forms off and give it to people to give you feedback. And that teaching can be bedside teaching. So you can, as an intern, you can teach medical students at the, just during your ward rounds or anywhere, and just give them the forms. That's just a proof that you have taught them. It could be any, teaching at a local level, student-driven teaching. Again, you could teach your juniors. If you stay in a hostel, gather them, start teaching them, and get feedback forms. It definitely helps. Organizing teaching and training sessions gives you higher points. So maybe organizing a BLS workshop or something of that sort would definitely help. Then there are points for additional degree, which again is very, very difficult to get in India. But I wish I knew this before. Maybe I could have done a BSc in some basic science through correspondence. That definitely helps. So you could always think about doing that at any point throughout your MBBS. And then there are stuff depending upon the conferences that you attend and whatnot, but then that's just different for every specialty. I think the basic one would be research, audit, teaching. That's what I would, and that's something, teaching is something which many people don't do. And that's one of the most easiest points to get. So I would definitely say do something of that sort.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think I agree with you on that teaching is something that students often ignore, and it sounds, pretty easy to get that done. So Thank you so much for that advice.
And when you teach, you learn as well. So it's always easy. And one more thing that I would like to add on is poster presentations. If you can do that, present a paper, a poster anywhere, that would be great help as well. But again, for that, you need either a case report, something of that sort. So again, you need to catch hold of someone, catch hold of a professor with whom you have a very good rapport, and just get it done.
Okay, so the important things to do are case reports and poster presentations on these case reports, then auditing and teaching.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question is, how long does it take on average to complete the residency programs?
Well, the training program in UK is long. If you compare it with the US and India, it's definitely long. So that is one thing that you need to keep in mind before you actually go there. It is going to take time. So you need 2 years before you get into training. So 1 year of internship, which your Indian internship is counted. So apart from, if you take that one off, the second year of work, that is 1 year, and then 3 year. It depends on various specialties. For medicine, it is 3 years of basic training or internal medicine training, which is essentially equivalent to MD medicine in India, and then 3 or 4 years of specialty training, depending on what specialty you take. I think cardio is 4, some other gen med is 3. It depends on what specialty you take. So if you get a training spot in your first attempt at every time you apply, it would take about 7 years. But having said that, some specialties are definitely more competitive. If you do want to get into cardio or gastro, you might have to spend 1 year more in building your CV and doing research, doing presentations, and all sorts of stuff. So I would say at least 8 years would be a good time to, good timeline. But yeah, definitely possible in 7.
Okay, thank you so much. So it varies by residency, but
Yeah.
generally there's 2 years of training, and then you can go into your so-called residency as such, and you can start with 3 years, and then you can further your specialist. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
And
So-
let me also tell you that unlike India, after 3 years of basic training or internal medicine training, you do not get a degree. So you cannot practice as a consultant after 3 years. You will have to wait for 7 years to practice, except for GP training, which is just for 3 years. You can become a GP in just 3 years and work as a consultant and earn at the same level as any other specialist. But you are not working in a hospital. You are a GP. You have your own practice.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I didn't know that for sure. So moving on to our next question. What is the total cost of applying for PLAB?
It always varies because they keep on changing the fees. To be honest, I don't know what is the fees now because they have changed it multiple times. On an average, I would say, along with the cost of giving English exams, PLAB 1, PLAB 2, the cost of traveling there and giving the exam. If £1 was about 90 Indian rupees, it would cost you around 5 to 6 lakhs. That's I would look at something around that, but it depends on a lot of factors, the conversion rate. But I think anything around 6 lakhs would be a decent amount. If you do want to go and live in the UK and prepare for your exams for a longer duration, maybe around 10. But I can definitely assure you that under no circumstances would it cost more than 10 lakhs. I think I spent 6 lakhs, so that should be a decent amount.
Okay, that's very good to know. So now our next question, and I can see a lot of people asking the same question in the Zoom chat, is will we be paid during this time?
During which time, sorry?
During your training and your residency, will we be receiving a stipend?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not a stipend, it's a proper pay. So when you're doing your training, you are paid. So you're equivalent to an employee. You have the same rights as an employee, and you are paid very, very well. On an average, the monthly salary would vary. It depends. So for doing your night duties and weekend shifts, you're paid more. So your salary would always vary. But at the beginning, like I went to the UK just after my internship and I got around £2,400 a month with my night shifts. Without my night shifts, if I was just to work from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, I would have been paid around £2,000 or £2,100, and which is more than sufficient to live a very good life.
Okay, that sounds good. So the next question is, what are the entry requirements and criteria for the PLAB?
So for PLAB, you just have two requirements. One is you have a medical degree. You need to finish your med school, which means that you need to pass your final year of med school. I know that in India, you're given your degree post your internship. So you need not have your final degree. You can give your PLAB during your internship, but you have to pass your final year exam and have your passing certificate in hand. And the second requirement is that you need to have the English exam and need to have a particular score. If you're going for IELTS, so IELTS has 4 sections. It has reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And the maximum score for each section is 9. So out of 9, you need to get at least 7 in each section, and the cumulative score should be at least 7.5. These days, they're also taking OET, which is Occupational English Test, as an alternative to IELTS. I do not have much idea about it, but it is said to be an easier exam. That said, it also costs a lot more than IELTS. So I would say if you have, I don't see any reason why someone who is born, brought up in India would not get the relevant score in IELTS. Trust me, the level of knowledge and the level of vocabulary that we as Indians have is very high. We just need to be confident while giving the exam, and I think it's fairly easy. You just need to know the tips and tricks, maybe a couple of days of prep, and that should be good. Yep. So just your passing certificate and your English exam, and then you're good to go and give your PLAB on.
Okay, perfect. So our next question is, are there any residencies which are difficult to get selected into?
Well, at the moment, nothing is difficult to get into, but the scenario and situation always changes. That said, I will let you know which of them are easy. That said, I think you should go for whichever specialty you're interested in. Nothing is impossible. So pick up your interest, start working towards it. Maybe it might take an year or 2 extra, but trust me, it will be worth it because you're going to be working in that specialty for your entire life. Now, coming to the easier specialties, GP and psychiatry are the most easiest to get into. They are always looking for people. UK is very short of general practitioners, and you will get into GP or psych irrespective. Even if you close your eyes, just pass your PLAB, apply, and we'll get into it. Medicine is easy as well, but it is getting competitive these days. However, not very difficult if you're passionate about it. Surgical specialties are known to be more competitive, primarily because most British graduates prefer surgical specialties. So you might have to start working at building your CV from the beginning. You just have to make it on par with them. I think if you ask me about the most difficult specialties to get into derm, ophthalm, I think orthopedics would be most difficult, but I've known IMGs get into ophthalm. I've known IMGs get into orthopedics. Even ONGs considered to be difficult, but I know people who have got into. I think except for derm, I do know IMGs getting into other specialties. I'm pretty sure there are people who have got into derm. It's just that I don't know. So nothing is impossible.
Okay, so getting a GP and medicine seats are relatively easier, and the surgical specialties like ophthalm and ortho are relatively more difficult. But your advice is to our viewers is you should follow whichever specialty you like the most.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so our next question is the PLAB
one sec, someone has asked me, is it Is it difficult to get into peds? No, I forgot about peds. It's very easy to get into pediatrics. It's easier than medicine. It's easy because not many people want to get into peds. There's a lot of medical, legal thing involved in peds. There's certain even surgical specialties has a lot of medical legal cases and issues. But yeah, peds is something that people not many prefer, so it's relatively easy.
Okay, great. So next question is the PLAB single or are there multiple rounds like in the US Assembly?
You mean, is it a single exam or?
Yeah, is there?
As I previously said, there's two parts to it. PLAB 1, which is a written exam, and PLAB 2, which is a clinical exam. Both of them are very, very easy. And the questions that are asked are essentially at the level of an intern. So let me talk to you about both of them in detail. So PLAB 1 is basically a written MCQ exam. I think there are around 180 questions. They keep on changing pattern every time, every 1 or 2 years. So keep an eye. It could be 200 tomorrow. But 80 questions when I gave the exam 2 years ago. And they were relatively very, very easy. One-liners, not too difficult. But as I said, you just have to keep on reading from your first year. PLAB 2 is a clinical exam. So there are 20 stations, out of which 18 are clinical cases and 2 are rest stations. Each station lasts for about 8 minutes and you're given 30. So the exam center is like a hotel room where there are multiple rooms, one after the other. On the door, there is the question is stuck onto the door and you get 30 seconds to read the question and formulate a plan. And then you go in and then you have 7 minutes, talk to the patient, take history, examine, and then formulate a diagnosis. And at the end, the examiner might ask you 1 or 2 questions if he wants to. Generally, most of them won't, but sometimes they do ask you questions and they're relatively easy.
Okay, great. Thank you for that summary. So the next question is, how is the PLAB different from the USMLE and which is better taking into account the financial aspect?
Better in the sense PLAB is definitely much, much, much more easier than USMLE. You could prepare for just 10 or 15 days and give the exam an easy pass. I think because PLAB is, I think USMLE is also easy, but the only difference is that PLAB just takes pass or fail into account. It doesn't take your scores into account, whereas USMLE considers your score, and that is where you got to be good. You got to study hard and get a good score, whereas in PLAB, it's just about passing, so it's very, very easy. From the financial point of view, definitely PLAB is much, much cheaper. As I said, it just costs around 6 lakhs, whereas I'm pretty sure USMLE costs much more than that. My colleagues have spent more than 20 or 30 lakhs on the entire process. So yeah, PLAB is very cheap.
Okay, great. So in summary, the PLAB is pass or fail, which makes it easier than the USMLE. And it's relatively cheaper, costing about 6 lakhs in total.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So the next question is, what is the pattern of the paper like?
It's just, as I said, it's just a multiple choice questions, and most of the questions are one-liners, but nowadays they are asking you clinical scenarios. But to be honest, don't get scared looking at the question. Most of the information that they give is redundant. You just need to practice and make sure that you pick up the keywords and answer questions accordingly. As far as the pattern goes, it's a mixture of all your clinical subjects. So there'll be questions from medicine, from surgery, peds, gynae, psych, optal. There's more emphasis on medicine, surgery, gynae, and peds, and then obviously the smaller subjects they're synthesized. I don't think there's a particular percentage allotted for every specialty. I might be wrong, but I'm not aware of any such thing. So it's relatively easy. There's no fixed pattern. It's just about preparing for the exam and giving the exam.
Okay, great. So in summary, it's mainly clinical case scenarios, which focuses more on medicine and surgery. And your advice is to look for the keywords in these questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Great. So the next question is, what are the struggles that Indian doctors may face during residency in UK?
It depends. Depends on where you come from, what your background is. I was a day schooler. During my MBBS, I stayed with my family, so it was very difficult for me to adjust, especially in the first few months, because that was the first time I was staying away from my family. You need to, like, from everything from cooking, washing, there's going to be no help. So you have to be mentally prepared to do everything on your own. And then obviously looking after the house, paying your bills. So yeah, it's definitely difficult. But as far as the friends part of it goes, UK is very, very multicultural and is very Indian. Especially, so there are certain regions in UK where I think you will find more Indians than British. So you won't miss India from that point of view. You will like have a good friend circle. You will have a good social life. You will get to celebrate all Indian festivals. You get to eat good Indian food. It's just staying away from the family that you're worried about. The other thing that bothered me was the weather. UK is a cold country, and by cold, it is actually cold around the year. I come from Mumbai, so winters are practically non-existent in Mumbai. Even the summers in UK are very, very cold. Summers in UK are probably like winters or maybe autumn time in Delhi. So it is cold. Even in summers, you do need a jacket most of the time. So that is something which most people find difficult to adjust to. And something that we as Indians don't realize how drastically different the weather could be. It could be sunny in the morning and raining in the afternoon. You just have to be prepared. I think if you are someone who enjoys cold, loves that weather, it's a great country. But yeah, it does get gloomy, to be honest. I don't think anyone who has lived in UK would say that this weather hasn't affected them. It is going to affect you, especially in your first year. It is going to be dull, gloomy, not bright. You can't go out whenever you want because it's very, very cold. And I think you should just mentally prepare yourself before going there.
Okay, so I think the big challenges are the weather and being on your own away from your family and cooking everything. But you can find a community of a lot of Indians in the UK, so I think that will make our viewers feel a lot better.
Yeah, it's good. It's a nice, beautiful country. It's beautiful. You probably never, I think UK is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. So it's beautiful. There's always a good side to it. I think you just need to get used to it. That's it.
Okay, so our next question is something which people have kept asking on Zoom and on YouTube as well. So the question is, when should you start preparing for the PLAB?
To be honest, I prepared for PLAB like just maybe a month or 2-3 weeks before my exam. In fact, I got to know about my PLAB during my internship, maybe mid-internship. So I don't think you need to even worry about PLAB during your MBBS days. Internship would be the best time to actually start studying for it. As I said before, and I think I should keep on emphasizing this, during your MBBS days, make sure that you read your standard textbooks. Make sure that you get your concepts well. And that's what is going to help you in the long run. So don't worry about any of those exams during your undergrad days. Prepare during your internship.
Okay, so as long as we're studying Well, for our MBBS itself, it's okay if we start specifically for the PLAB during internship. Okay, that's great to know. So the next question is, how long are PLAB scores valid for?
That's a good question. I think PLAB scores are valid for 2 years. Is it 2? Yeah, it is 2. 2 years. I think you need to give both your PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 within 2 years, and get your GMC registration. I might be wrong on this point. Correct me if it's wrong, but that is what I remember from my memory. It's not a very difficult exam, to be honest. The only difficult part is getting, oh yeah, it's 2 years. The only difficult part is getting a date for PLAB 2. Having said that, GMC is a very, very supportive organization. If you're unable to find a date within 2 years of your PLAB 1 exam, give them a call and they'll help you out. They are very, very supportive towards doctors, and UK needs doctors, so I'm pretty sure they will help you out. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a really good tip. So the scores are valid for 2 years, but if you weren't able to write in those 2 years, if you give them a call, they might be able to make an exception for it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question is, how can I add leadership skills to my CV?
Oh, that's a good thing. As I said, work in NGOs, take up local posts in those NGOs. It could be, you could do anything, organizers, be a local, be a leader at a local level. You don't need to be a leader at a national level. The next most easiest thing is get into student unions in your college, organize your college festival, get a set of, so I think all of us are into something. We do organize something at some particular point of our life, but what we generally don't do is keep a record of it. So what I suggest is, even if you are organizing maybe say a football match at a local level or between two different medical schools, keep a record of it. Try and get a certificate from your college committee, and that will show on your leadership skills. Secondly, there are certain online courses. You don't need to worry about them now. Once you get into the UK, you will get to know about them. They are free, but you need to be working in the UK with a valid GMC registration, and you can put them on the CV and say, hey, this is what I have, that I've attended this course, and this is what I've learned from it, and this is what I can reflect from it, and say that whatever I've learned, you just need to put it in a nice way. So whenever you attend any particular conference or any particular course, you need to write down points. You need to know what you've learned, what you've learned new, how it's going to change your practice, and how you plan to implement it. So that's what you need to put into your CV. So when you're writing your CV, just don't say I've attended this course. Say what you've learned from the course and how you're going to change, how that course is going to change your practice in future.
Okay, that's really good advice. So for leadership skills, we can start at our own local community level within our own colleges. And it's really important to write down what we have learned and how we've grown from these things so we can put it properly in our CV. That's great. So now we have finished the questions which I've compiled. So we'll get into more of the questions from Zoom and YouTube. Okay, so one question a lot of people are asking is, how is it different from the Indian entrance exams?
To be honest, PLAB is not an entrance exam. It's a licensing exam. So you give the exam and you get a license to practice in the UK, unlike the Indian exam, which is an exam to get into the training program. It is not a licensing exam. So that's one of the main difference. Even if you pass the exam, you are not guaranteed a training spot. You are just given a license to practice in the UK. PLAB, the full form of PLAB is Professional Linguistic Assessment Board. So it looks at the linguistics. So basically it ensures that you are fit to practice in the UK. It doesn't assure you of a training spot. So that's the major difference.
Okay, I see. Okay, so the next question is, what about the working hours during residency? How are they compared to the working hours in India?
Is there a working hour in India? You literally work at whatever time, like you literally are in the hospital. So
Yeah.
UK has rules. As I said, you are an employee and you have your own rights and protection and rules around it. So the maximum that you can work in a week is 40 hours. You cannot work for more than 40 hours. However, that 40 hours is cumulative over 6 weeks. So 1 week you could be working 48 hours and the next week you could be working less. But on an average, that is 40 hours a week. You cannot have a shift. You cannot work for more than 12 hours at a stretch. So you cannot be rostered for more than 12 hours. The maximum shift that you have is going to be for 12 hours. And there are certain rules saying you cannot work for more than 9 days at a stretch. The 10th day has to be off. There are many small caveats, but essentially it is very good system to work in, and with good working hours. So basically 48 hours a week or 48 hours a week. Sorry, did I just say 40? It's 48 a week. Not more than 9 days at a stretch. And I think not more than 4 or 5 nights. I'm not sure. But even nights are just going to be 12-hour shifts. So yeah, not more than 5 nights in a row.
Okay, well, that's really good to know. So compared to India, where you're on call basically all the time, there are limitations in the UK, and you won't have to work more than a 12-hour shift at a time.
Yeah,
So,
and you are an employee, so if they do roster you, they make you work for more than that particular stipulated period of time, you can sue your hospital, and you can basically sue them and get money back. So they will not roster you for more than that.
okay, great. So the next question is the MRCP exam required to secure a PG seat in the UK?
No, so definitely no. As I said, the training program is UK is broken into basic training and specialty training. You need to have your MRCP by the end of your basic training. You cannot get into specialty training without your MRCPs. So MRCPs are important, but not at the beginning. They are important later on to get into a particular specialty. That said, you can start giving MRCPs. I think so. Every different college has different criteria. For medicine, you can give MRCP after your internship. You cannot give it during your internship, but you can give it after your internship. So I strongly suggest that you should be giving your first attempt as soon as possible. So try and get rid of your exams early on, and then you can start looking at building your CV later on and focusing on whatever specialty you want. So definitely advisable to give your exams early on in your career.
Okay, that's great advice. So we should definitely try to do our MRCPs as early as we can.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next question is, how useful are classes and institutions like Go Campus or PLAB Masters?
I didn't even know that these classes existed. Are these classes for PLAB 1 or PLAB 2?
Even I didn't know they existed. They just asked me that question.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. But I would say for PLAB 1, you don't need anything, literally nothing. They're questions that are freely available on Facebook, on just social medias. Just do them and you should be fine. I think there's a document that says 1700 PLAB questions. I think I just did that, and just the 1700 questions and passed the exam. So PLAB 1, definitely no classes. PLAB 2, I did go for a class, but at that point, there were not many people to guide me for PLAB exam. I was basically one of the very first person from Mumbai to actually go to the UK. I'm pretty sure there are other people who have gone, but obviously I didn't know about them at that point. There was no one to guide me, and I decided to go and take coaching for PLAB 2. But in retrospect, I don't think it is very important. PLAB 2 essentially looks at how you talk to a patient. They essentially want to make sure that you are a safe doctor. So unless you don't do something drastically, I don't know, it's like something that could actually kill a patient in real life, they wouldn't fail you. You are scored on, you are also scored on how sympathetic and how empathetic you are to the patient. So interpersonal skills are scored very high in PLAB 2. That is something I would suggest you need to work on. And if you can get your interpersonal skills right, even if you screw up the entire case, there's a good chance that you would pass. And by interpersonal skills, I mean the way you talk to the patient, the way you're present. You need to be sympathetic to the patient. For example, if the patient is talking about a loved one passing away, just behave like how you behave with your friends, basically. Give a pat on their shoulder, make sure they're fine. It's just be natural, and I think you should get in. So PLAB 1, definitely no coaching. PLAB 2, maybe yes, maybe not. In retrospect, I wouldn't have taken a coaching, but yeah, if I have taken, and I don't know whether it helped me or not, but yeah, I did pass the exam and sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you for that advice. So for PLAB 1, we should all stick to free resources instead of going for courses, because there's a lot of them out there. And for PLAB 2, it's very important to have very good interpersonal skills and talk to the patient very nicely. Okay, so the next one again is a repeated question. A lot of people have been asking, is a UK degree valid in India? Can you practice in India afterwards?
Definitely, but you need to finish off all your 7 years of training. You need to get your final degree, which is called CCT, which is called Certificate of Completion of Training, which you get after 7 or 8 years of your training. But they are definitely valid. You don't need to give any exam if you need to practice in India after your degree. Another thing to note is GP. There's no GP system in India. So if you want to become a GP in the UK, you have to, if you are going for the GP training pathway, you're committing yourself to staying in the UK and working there. There's no point of coming back being a GP, because obviously there are no GPs unless the system in India changes, which I don't see changing in the near future.
Right. So besides, unless you're a GP, you can come back and work in India.
Yeah, MCI directly gives you a registration. You don't need to give any licensing exam. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So a few people have been asking, how expensive is the living cost in the UK?
Not very expensive. I saved more, around 60% of my salary, and I used to spend a lot. I used to travel a lot. Even if you are spendthrift and you're indulging in expensive gifts, you should be easily able to save 40% of your salary. If you're living in a place like London, the room rent might be a bit high, but even then you can easily save 30 to 40% of your salary. So on an average, I would say maybe around 1,000 to 1,200 pounds would be what you would spend per month. And that's on the higher side. There definitely people can spend much. So on the salary that I lived in, I have seen a family living on that salary, 3 to 4 people actually living, eating, and obviously doing their day-to-day, living on that expense. So definitely possible. If it's just one person, it's very, very easy to live you can easily live a luxurious life with that salary if you're just a single person. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's really good to know. So basically, if you work in London, you'll be paid well enough and you can survive on about $1,200 a month. That is the higher end. So yeah. Great, that's great to know. So another repeated question is, what is the UK MLE?
Well, UKMLE, unfortunately, no one has much information about it. The only information that we have was UK was planning to introduce it in 2021 or 22, but I don't see it because of this COVID. I don't think it will be implemented that soon. Essentially, they're trying to make it similar to the USMLE, but that's all speculation. We still don't know what's gonna come up, and what's gonna happen. So difficult to say, and that's why I keep on saying study well during your undergrad. Focus on your standard textbooks, build up a good base, and whatever comes in, you would definitely go ahead and give whatever exam you want if you have a good base. So yeah, stick to your basics, and you should be good.
Okay, that's really good advice. So yeah, so instead of speculating, we should just focus on our basics, and whatever exam comes our way, hopefully everyone will be fine.
Yep.
Okay, so next question is, how does the next influence the PLAB?
To be honest, I have no clue about this. The only thing that I know is it's replacing me. And I don't know how to answer that because I definitely don't know much about next. I never, I mean, I think you should make up your mind early on in your career whether you want to stay in India or go out of the country. If you're planning to go out of the country, then forget about NEET or next. At the same time, I think next is becoming mandatory for everyone, as far as I know. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Again, I'd stick to your basics. I'm gonna just say that keep on reading from your beginning. Again, you just have to pass the next exam. You don't have to get a particular score or a particular rank. If you're going to the UK, your aim should be just to pass the exam. So it shouldn't be difficult to just pass the exam with basic knowledge. So if you're going to the UK, if your plan is to go to the UK or any other country, just focus on passing the next and not getting a good rank. You should be
fine. Okay, that's good advice, and I think that will make a lot of our viewers feel better. We should just focus on passing the next, and then we can apply it to the UK. So the next question, which people have repeatedly asked, is can we pursue after we have done an MD or MS from India, can we do a specialty in the UK?
You can definitely do it, but I would suggest not to do it. I think it is strongly advisable that early on in your career you decide on what you want to do. Definitely, you can go to the UK after doing your MD or MS. It is considered as work experience, and you are valued there, but your degree itself has no value. So your 3 years of MS surgery would be counted as 3 years of surgical experience, but that doesn't give you any other edge. At the same time, certain surgical specialities also have different entry requirements. So if you want to get into basic training in surgery, you cannot have more than 2 years of surgical experience. So you might have to directly apply for some specialist training program after 3 years of your MD or MS. Having said that, specialist training programs are competitive, and they would definitely prefer someone who has done their basic training in the UK or someone who's coming in from somewhere else. So I would strongly suggest make up your mind before doing your PG in India. It's possible. It's not impossible. And in the current scenario, it's very easy to get into the UK at any point, but that can always change. So it's always advisable to try and get into the system as early as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that insight. So it is possible to do a super specialty in the UK, but it's advisable to do your basic training in the UK as well, so you have an edge over the other competitors. So that's great. So last question for our session is, can you tell us a little bit about the visa application process?
Visa application for PLAB 2 or visa application for your job, like after you get a job?
So they've just said the visa application process. So I guess in general.
visa application, the visa that you apply for PLAB 2 is a normal visitor visa. So it's just like a tourist visa. What they care about, they care about two things: whether you have enough money to support and sustain for the length of your stay in UK, and whether you will return back to your country after your whatever intended stay is or not. So you just have to convince the visa officer. Now, unlike the US visa application, where there's a direct interview with the visa officer, here that you don't see them in person, you just need to explain on a piece of paper, basically write a letter to them saying why you're going to UK, how much your expenses would be, give them your travel itinerary, give them bank account statements, and then just say that you wouldn't, break any rules while you're in the country and that you will come back in time. So that's essentially the visitor visa. I think the main thing is having enough money in your account. If you're going in for a month, I would suggest to be on the safer side, at least have 2 lakhs in your account now, and have those 2 lakhs for at least 3 months. So if you're applying for a visa today, don't put those 2 lakhs in your account, a week ago and say, hey, I have the money. You need to have it for a good 3 months, just to assure him that, you have enough money to sustain. As far as the job visa goes, which is a tier 2 visa, it is relatively easy because you have a sponsor. So the hospital is going to sponsor your visa. So I've never seen a tier 2 visa getting rejected. In case you miss any of the documents during your tier 2 visa application, they are known to send you an email and ask you for additional documents. And during your tier 2, the main thing would be just sustain, like having enough money again in your account to sustain until you get your first salary or not. And even then, there's a question. I mean, if your sponsor could essentially say that he's going to pay you for the first month in advance or pay you for maintenance, then that gets out of question. So getting a tier 2 Eurowork visa is very easy. For a tourist visa, you just need to show the visa officer that you have enough money in your account and that you're not going to break any rules while you're in.
Okay, great. That sounds really doable, especially with no interview. So I think that's very encouraging to our viewers. So this was supposed to be the last question, but since I see people asking this question a couple of times, let's end it on this one. As PLAB is a licensing exam, how do we get into a training program?
So as I said, getting into a training program getting into a training program, you need to have 2 or rather 3 things. You need to have good referees. You need to have good references who will say and stand by you and say that you've worked with them and that you're very good with whatever you do. You have a good character and blah, 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 just normal stuff. Hello? I think you've unmuted me. You've muted me. Can you please unmute? Oh,
No,
great.
ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, great. I can hear you now. Where was I? Oh, sorry. What was I talking about?
You need good references.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you need good references. And then the second one is you need a good CV. Yeah, leadership skill, all those that we talked about, research, audits, teaching, and additional degree, whatever just put everything in your CV. And the third thing is an interview. So it depends on how you talk, how you present yourself. Practice your interviews. Even if you don't know something, it's fine. Say that you don't know. You just need to be a safe doctor. They are there to train you. Use your common sense. Even if you give the basic answers, it's fine. Show them that you're eager to learn. if you don't know something, tell them I'll go home and read about it. I don't know and start fluffing something. It's just about, being confident and at the same time a safe doctor. And you should pass your interview. So yeah, just good references, CV, and interview. That should help you get a good training spot.
Okay, great. So everyone keep in mind references, a good CV, and a good interview. These are the 3 important things to get into a good training program. So that was our last question. Thank you all for joining. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I am Malika Gupta, the Secretary of Marketing and Sponsorship. And guys, thank you so much, Dr. Susmita Reddy. We can continue the Q&A session if Dr. Susmita Reddy permits. And if you all have any more questions, you can put them in the chat box and Anne can take them. But before that, I'll start sharing my screen for the delegates present to scan that the QR code for them to access the attendance form for the delegates. I'll keep the screen sharing on till that time. If anybody has any more questions and can take that, and if Dr. Susmita Reddy can answer them, then we'll be happy to do that. But I'll start sharing my screen for that. And please note, I'll start sharing my screen by 1:30 and I'll stop the session by 1:40. So we have a total of 10 minutes, and which can go as long as to 1:45, and this session will end by 1:45. So Dr. Susmita Reddy, we are honored to have you taking time out of a busy schedule to answer all our doubts. And we can see from the chat box and from the YouTube as well, the viewers are really delighted to have get all their doubts answered. Thank you so much. And I'll share my screen now.
Great. I'm happy to answer any further questions. If someone can read them out to me, I'm happy to just take a couple of more minutes or 10 minutes more and answer them.
Definitely. Okay, I'm looking through for the next question. Okay, so guys, here's the code for you to scan and fill out the survey. Okay, so someone has asked, what are the good places in the UK to work at?
Good places. And in terms of places, I think each part of UK is unique in its own way. So I think there's no specific good or bad place as such. In terms of living, London, East and West Midlands are very Indian. So you will have a huge Indian community. You'll get good Indian food in those areas. So if that's something that you're looking for, I would suggest that look for places around London or the East or West Midlands. If you're looking for places that are calm, quiet, beautiful, relaxed, and places that have great beaches, go down south. Kent, Surrey, Devon and Plymouth, just go down south, and all of them are beautiful from that point of view. Wales is a great place to live in. People in Wales are known to be very good, very kind, very forthcoming. So I don't think there's any particular, good or bad place. It depends on what you want. Scotland is something, again, very beautiful, but extremely cold. Scotland there's a separate application process for Scotland, a separate rather website to apply for Scotland. But again, Scotland is a beautiful place to live in. Also keep in mind that Wales and Scotland have a different pay system. They use a different contract, and I think the pay is slightly higher in Wales. It's not much different, but if money is something that matters to you, Wales and Scotland pay slightly higher than England.
Okay, that sounds great. So basically your advice to us is that we should pick places which we would like to live, and everywhere to work in the UK is pretty good.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Bang on.
Great. So the next question is, Why are the doctors currently working in NHS not happy with it? Does it underpay them?
That's a very good question. People, I mean, what's wrong with India? Nothing is wrong. You just want to explore new places. And I think you tend to take your own country for granted. UK pays doctors well. Definitely, it does pay doctors well. I think one of the main reasons why doctors or why British want to leave UK is, according to them, it's UK is very short doctors and you need to work for long hours. But if you are someone who has done their internship in India, it's going to be nothing for you. The pay scale is good, although they did decrease the pay some few years ago. There was a pay cut, a salary cut for doctors. And I think that is what prompted them to leave the UK. So yeah, but if you are an Indian graduate, you're used to working in these difficult scenarios, long working hours. UK should definitely be much, much, much easier.
Great. That sounds good. So let's look for the next question. Someone has asked, do we get to choose which programs we get into, or are we matched like the USMLE?
Oh no, you get to. So, do you mean which program, which places you get into? So, for a non-training post, you just give an interview. They give you an offer, and you select that job. So you basically have the choice of going wherever you want. For a training post, it's a centralized recruitment. So you give your interview, and then they give you a score and rank you according to that score, and then get a choice of where you want to go. So for a training job, it's a centralized recruitment, and it depends on your score. But for
Is what are training and non-training jobs?
if I were to compare it with the Indian job scenario, training jobs are equivalent to doing your residency or an MD or an MS. Non-training jobs are just working as a medical officer in any hospital. I think that's the simplest way of putting it.
Okay, that sounds good. So someone has said you need 2 years of work experience, including internship. Is the second year included in the training job?
No, the second year is not included in the training job. It has to be 24 months of work. So you need to have 24 months of experience before getting the training job.
Okay, so next question is, how do we apply for a training program? Do we apply to each hospital individually?
No, as I just said, it's a centralized recruitment process. So you apply to the college or you apply, yeah. There's essentially every year during a particular time, it's a centralized process where you apply to the college and then you give interviews. Those interviews are 5 or 6 different locations across UK. And then you get allotted a spot depending upon what your rank is.
Okay, great. So that makes sense. It's a centralized process, not applying to each college individually. So next question is there a fee for the training program?
No, there's no fee for the training program. There's a fee for, so you need to maintain a portfolio, which is essentially, portfolio is essentially like a book, an ebook, where you log in what all procedures you've done and basically what all you have been doing. So there are training requirements. I'm not going to dwell upon it. So you need to see these many cases and, maybe say one case of chest pain, one case of shortness of breath, blah, 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 blah. And to maintain that portfolio, you need to give, say, $400 or $500 a year. That's it. Not much.
Okay, that sounds good. So besides that fee, there's no other application fee.
No.
Great. Okay, so next question is, I think you answered this. Can we stop at 3 years basic training and MRCP?
It's not going to add much value to it. you can continue working in the hospital as a registrar, which is basically the level that you would be working at if you stop at an MRC level. Not much of value even back home. So I wouldn't suggest stopping at MRC. You either finish off everything or you don't. If you think that working for training for 7 years is large or a huge amount of time, consider going.
Okay, great. That's great advice. So now we're going to do our last two questions. So if any of you, or our last question, so if any of you have anything very pressing, put it in the chat now, and we will finish up the session. Okay, let's see. Will our last question be? Okay. Okay, so our last question will ask about the government bond. Is there any way to get out of it, or do you have to finish a government bond?
You have to either finish your bond or break your bond. I had to break my bond. I chose to break my bond. Depends on the financial condition, on a lot of other factors, but you have to finish your bond. Don't leave it like that. It's not advisable to, strongly advisable to either finish your bond or break your bond before you go. If your bond amount is on the lower side, maybe something around 10 or 15 lakhs, and if you can afford to pay it off, I strongly suggest that you pay it off, because you can easily get that money back within a year of working in the UK. So say if 15 lakhs is your bond amount, I would strongly suggest just pay it off, because you're going to be making almost the same money in 1 year. If it's anything about 20 lakhs or 15 lakhs, I would say consider paying it off if you're well off. If not, finish your bonds.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you once again, Dr. Reddy, for guiding us and giving us such amazing tips on how to succeed in the PLAB.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. I must say that you are very amazing at your job. The way that you're conducting the session was very, very good.
Thank you so much for those kind words, ma'am. It was really such an honor having you today.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you guys for joining us today. So this is the QR code which is on the screen, and it will be there till 1:45. Directly after 1:45, we'll close up the session, and you can join us for the next session, that is Surgery, the New Perspective, Global Surgery. So that is the keynote number 4. You can join us for that. Before that, you all are requested to scan this code and then join us for the next session. We will end this meeting by 1:45. See you soon. And in case you have any doubts, you're unable to scan, you're unable to put your picture, then you are requested to contact your group moderators and they will guide you the same. Once you have filled the form, you can leave the meeting. Feel free to leave the meeting. In case you are unable to, in case you have any doubts regarding the scanning of the picture and regarding the scanning of the code, please contact your group moderators. They will guide you for the same. In case you are unable to fill the form before the time stipulated and the form closes, even then you're requested to contact the group moderators.